Many people have described what we're currently going through as a spiritual battle between light and dark. And whilst I can certainly see that comparison when you look at what's been happening over the last few years, and on this podcast, we've looked at every single nuance of the pandemic response in particular. But since the end of the pandemic, we're now seeing, multiple conflicts, great divisions and polarization in society. It almost feels like it's this kind of fall of civilization. So how do we, if we are in such a spiritual battle, how do we navigate these times, and how do we keep our sanity, and how do we embrace joy? How do we connect to those positive emotions? This is what we're going to be discussing today, my dear friend Sheian, in advance of his event coming up this weekend. So if you're watching this now ahead of the 26th of November, I'll be attending this wonderful event that Sheian is hosting in London called the Return to Joy, or A Journey into Joy, Reclaim Your Sovereign Consciousness. What better time to explore these topics? You'll see the link to the event if you'd like to join me in London below this video or this podcast, wherever you're listening. But sit back and enjoy this conversation. It's a little bit different from what we normally do here on the podcast, but it's an important and timely conversation around a subject that I feel is critical for us to start to embrace if we are to navigate these turbulent times. Enjoy the conversation with my dear friend, Sheian. So I'm delighted to be joined today by, my friend formerly known as Lazo Freeman, and today here with his birth name as Sheian, and he will correct me again for getting it wrong, I'm so sorry. And when I met formerly Lazo, he was one of the UK's most foremost personal trainers, body transformation experts, and he, to me, looked like an absolute Adonis. He's still a stunning gentleman, I think we'll all agree. But, he was, his rippling muscles, and you were running, you were known for your body transformation programs for the top people in business, celebrities, and, you were the person that people would go to get premium results for their body and mind. But there was always this spiritual aspect to you, which I picked up very early on. And you were also running something I remember called the Influential Gentleman, which in my mind was very much a kind of, at least perception-wise, was kind of alpha male business types. And now, there's a very different character in front of me. But I'm really curious to understand, the journey you've been on. That. And our first podcast interview together, I think, was around 2016. So we're talking nearly 7, maybe even 8 years ago. It could have been 2015. And a lot's changed, it seems, but or maybe a lot has been reconnected with. Let's find out. So tell us, what's happened? What's this unfolding? What's this reclamation? Tell me what's this journey that you've been on?
Well, thank you for the summary. It's always good to remember where you came from, because we forget how far we've moved into a certain direction. But at the same time, like you shared, there's some quality that has just never changed. That's always there. It's just now a bit more magnified in terms of one's true essence. And I think that's the journey we will go to, is trying to find that authentic self in this crazy world called the human experience. And what's it all about? So when I met you, I was running a Body Transformation Academy. I had like 250 plus personal trainers showing them how to, transform someone's mindset to really, the baseline was to fall in love with working out and fall in love with their nutrition. Like that was it. Like, how do I get people to do that? And the way that started was back in early 2004, I won the Body for Life competition where Cindy Crawford came down and gave me the prize. At the time beforehand, I was studying biochemical engineering at UCL. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. The reason being is because I had a big falling out with my father at the time. And he kind of was like, engineering, science, physics, maths. And then I'm like, I had a falling out with you. Why am I doing this? So I was like deeply depressed at the time, and I just had this feeling, well, I can't control the world. Like, the world's going to do its own thing, but I can control the way I think and feel. And the first thing is, like, a strong body is a strong mind. So I just needed to just take care of that, because the rest of it was just too much. So I focused on that. I did this 12-week competition. It's one of those original before and after photos now you see everywhere. So I was like one of the first ones to kind of get into that space here in the UK. And I happened to win. I was just like, okay, let's go and help transform people. And I got stuck because it was very difficult. Because it's actually quite easy to transform. Nutrition plans are out there. exercise plans are there. They all work if you work it. So I then spent a lot of time studying mindset. Like, how do you kind of like rewire the mind and get people to do things? So they came across like Dr. D. Martini became his facilitator. It's a very powerful process called the breakthrough experience, as well as studying NLP, hypnosis, anything to do with the mind, because I knew that was the missing link. And I always saw, you know, your challenging clients, and this is for all those people who have challenging clients or challenging customers, they are your best clients. Doesn't mean you're going to transform them or it's going to work. They're going to show holes in your game. So I always look for those guys, like who's the one, if I can transform that guy or help them, and they might not be able to. Some of them just don't. It's just the way it is. But if I can, like I had this one guy called Matt, he hated working out. He loved cakes. He was never into fitness as a kid. He was a video guy. And I was like, right, this is the guy. And I'm going to make him do it. So, you know, I experimented for a long time working with very tough clients, because it's easy to get someone who loves working out. You're just like, yeah, do this, and then fly. And a lot of that's to do with values and understanding someone's values. And so I start to build a process, and then all of a sudden I start to train all these CEOs, and billionaires, and all these wealthy people, you know, because I was able to get results and have a mechanism. And so trainers were like, yo, man, how do you do that? Can I learn that? And I was like, that's how I start the business, Body Transformation Academy. And we ended up winning Best Innovation by the UK government. We beat all the other governing bodies out there for Best Innovation in that industry as a new business. I was really pleased with that. I do like competitions. I like competition. I love it. Yes. And so that happened. And at the same time, I got involved in another business called Influential Gentlemen, where we work with these kind of very, very successful men who want to play the game of life on another level. Now, the caveat here, a lot of that stuff was like the level of the mind, the level of the intellect. You know, it's very much on that side. I had no idea about other parts of the human condition. We could call it intuition, we could call it alignment, we could call it how we actually interact in accordance with the natural flow of life. I had no idea. I never believed in any of that stuff. I thought people who talked about that stuff were just smoking crack. I had no interest. You know, people talk about astrology, talking about woo stuff. For some reason, they annoyed me. But the funny thing, I used to date girls who were always into that stuff. There was a link there. There was something like in me that they had that I wasn't really owning. And prior to that, I used to be a competitive bodybuilder. I competed at high level. I won the state universe in Miami, Mania. So I take things to the extreme. I love to take things to the nth degree. For me, whatever that is, you know. And so I always have this idea to compete, not necessarily because I want to beat somebody, just to see how far I can go. You know, it's more that, like, where is that place? And then, you know, as an entrepreneur, it's not easy. You just like 10 different hats you're wearing on. You have to learn this skill, that skill, and hustle, and do all sorts of crazy things, you know, to just get things going. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of output, and I just got exhausted. You know, in my mid-30s, I got a little exhausted. And like I would drink coffee, it wasn't working, I was trying to this. And then I remember dating this girl from Burning Man for a couple of months, and she had so much energy. Like she'd walk in a room, everyone would just turn around. Not because she's like super attractive, she just was beaming this radiance, you know, which I didn't understand. But it was Kundalini Yoga. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this thing called Kundalini Yoga. And I hated it. I hated it for 9 months. I couldn't stand it. You know?
Your muscles were probably so big you couldn't move in that way, right?
Yeah, it was very painful, and it's also you can't get good at it. It's one of those yogas. It's the yoga of energy. It's not the yoga of like stretching. They don't care how flexible you are. So it's not even that type of yoga. It's about this life force that sits at the base of your spine that you bring up. You know, and I guess a lot of people have not heard that kind of terminology back then. It started to become a bit more mainstream. People are thinking about what is this Shakti energy, Kundalini energy, serpent energy. What is that? So I remember just standing outside the class going, should I go or should I not? Should I go? And sometimes I don't know. I'm just like 11, you know. But I also had that training for bodybuilding, like, just do it. Just get over yourself, that resistance. So I had that kind of like help that I would try to tap into. And so I was doing that, and I started to just feel very different about who I am. And it's very hard to explain. It wasn't like I saw a therapist or, I talked about my problems. I felt like things just dropped off. That makes sense? Like something just fell off. Like it wasn't necessary anymore. That thing that used to trigger me just disappeared. And I couldn't explain what it is. This is fascinating. And there's a book I recommend for anybody listening. It's a really cool book. It's called The Surrender Experiment. One of my favorite books by Michael Singer. Not to spoil the story, but it was this guy who practiced his meditation, and he just, after a while, learned to surrender to what life is presented him. Right? Just the sense of surrendering. And, he created a £1 billion business from surrendering. Like, wait, hold on. Is this for real? There's another way to be successful that doesn't require the huffing and puffing and, the Western world. So work as hard as you can and just make it happen. It's like, maybe that thing doesn't want to make it happen. That's why you're tired, And then we go into that place of when the flow hits. We all know what flow hits, what it feels like. Like even when you're driving in traffic, just go from green lights, you're not even trying. That energy, it's like, what is that? What is happening there? So I became more interested in another side of the human experience. And that side is called beingness. Just being, as opposed to becoming. Westerners, we're so involved in becoming. And I've worked with a lot of wealthy people, and they're still miserable. Some are, not all of them are. Like, doesn't matter what they do, they're still miserable. So it's like, well, that's not a really good model to have. So it's not about acquisition. It's like, because they forgot their being. Somewhere down the line, they left it like there. So I was like, well, how do I feel more being? And I got involved with healing. I got involved with healing and what healing is and the study of healing. And we can say body transformation is a healing practice, to give people confidence and strength and resolution. And one side of healing is actually optimal performance. People think healing is just about trauma or releasing that and going back into your childhood. It does involve that, but more actually involves the human performance, or the performance where you're connected to this illusory experience called the human experience, which is not actually made out of matter. Like 99.9999999% is just empty space. You and I just vibrating in and out of consciousness, but we don't see it. But that's what's really happening, because our senses are very limited. So I say, wow, it's...
Well, I just want to pick up on the term healing, because actually, healing in a way in the Western world almost presupposes that there is a wound. And I'm a big seeker when it comes to the origin of meaning. And as such, I pay real attention to words. Yeah. And I loved reading about the etymology of healing, and it simply means restoration to health. So it does have a recovery element to it, but its restoration in itself is not, when we restore something, we rejuvenate. Yes, it's reclaiming something. And I think the beingness part is often it's the separation within oneself, the illusion of separation outside of ourselves, that reconnecting restoration to health is really curious, because again, people think they have to heal when they've been through an emotional wound, and that's maybe one avenue. Heal when we have a physical wound, but it's so wrapped around wounding. And it's not to say that we're not dealing with wounds of both physical, emotional, psychological, even beyond that. But I think it's deeper than that, and I think you were about to kind of explore upon that point.
I would thank you for sharing that. Like, that's a good take on what you just shared. And there's healing, and there's also just cleaning garbage, because we're always in osmosis with an energy exchange with people. And some of our anger, let's just say, it's not even our anger. We're just hanging out with an angry person, and we pick it up, and we're all of a sudden having these angry thoughts or these experiences, because there's just a level of osmosis. And so half the battle is just cleaning out the garden. As a human being, we're always picking up things, and that's the same thing when you meet somebody who's just, he or she might not say anything, but their presence, you just feel good. Like, why am I feeling good? Because they're just vibrating internally at a high level of consciousness, that you just feel good. And for example, I remember going to see a bunch of Tibetan people who are building a mandala. And they build this mandala for 3 days and they just throw it away to get the practice of like, let it go. Enjoy the beauty and just move on. That's their practice, is to let go of the attachment, even something beautiful. And I remember just standing here, I was like, let me just feel this person, like, just connect. And he's just very stern, very just, like, you can't see anything. And as I connected to him, I just felt so much joy. I was like, this guy must be buzzing inside, but he's just, you couldn't tell. That was there, that was available, that he was emanating something inside himself. So I got very curious of like empowering oneself to realizing all human experiences is not outside of you, it's inside of you. Everything's happening inside. Yes, certain things might stimulate it. For example, like some good news about something and you feel some joy. But why wait always for good news for the experience to happen? Why can't you just sit and just feel joy for no reason? Like, that was my kind of like deep training for 3 years. Actually, when I met you, I was just like, right, I'm going to master this thing called peace. There's a part of me is a very angry man. There's a part of me, if you become a bodybuilder and I was a kickboxer, there was a lot of aggression and there's a level of violence inside my system. I never took it out with people, but it was there. Like, I couldn't deny it. That was there. Or maybe just part of being a man. We all have that energy there. And sometimes it can either make us feel very docile or it can make us do stupid things. Like one of those things. If we repress it too much, we get a little docile. It needs expression. It needs expression. Yeah. And that's why I think boys struggle as a kid, because they don't have a space to really outlet it. They're not designed to just sit.
Yeah, I think that energy is always, and most energy forms, I think, have got a healthy or an empowering form that they can take, and a disempowering form. And I think unless we learn, and I think we're going to talk about your event as part of this conversation, which is looking at different practices and rituals. And it feels like in the Western world we're so disconnected from practice and ritual, and actually many of those practices and rituals that have been lost through the ages are indeed what gave people means and ways to express themselves in a holistic fashion. And in fact, going deeper on the term healing, actually, there's the old English version of healing means to make whole. And as you were talking, I was thinking, yes, wow, it sounds like what you're experiencing is a healthy merger of the masculine and feminine in a way, because it's often thought about as force and flow as opposing forces, and if you look at it in a dualistic sense, they are. But if you look at a non-dualistic sense, they are interconnected, and our ability to connect to those energies. And I always think about, when I talk about flow, people often talk about extreme sports, and you don't just get on a set. Well, I didn't just get on a set of skis and end up in flow. I still haven't got into flow on the skis. So my point is that it's not force necessarily, but there's an intentionality, there's a process, there's a mechanical piece to get into that flow state. And again, it shows that in order for flow to exist, its counterpart must also exist, and vice versa. And this is where I'm deeply fascinated by your journey, because it feels to me that the healing journey in a way is making whole. And I love that original term, the Old English. In fact, the Germanic term means the same, the Saxon term. And it's clearly, again, something we've lost, this idea of wholeness. And if you look at the separation and the division and the polarization in the world right now, people would say there's less, we have less in common with each other than we do have in opposition to one another. But I don't believe that's fundamentally true. But in the world that we're living, that's how we're experiencing life, through the lens of separation at the moment. And as a result, we are feeling isolated, divided, torn, and we're creating enemies of one another, when actually we're living this human experience on this tiny little rock, and only for a short period of time. Isn't it better that we find a way to get along? And but it comes to what you were saying, this in the male species, in the masculine rather, there is this energy that can result in this command, conquer, anger, and there are healthy ways that can be channeled. So I'm going to return the thread to you to kind of continue your exploration. But it's just as you were speaking, there were so many things unraveling for me there.
I would agree with everything you shared there. And another definition that I really enjoy to make this the word healing, and I agree, is a sense of wholeness. And that's where really the whole man comes from. Is this guy he just knows how to stay in the space of wholeness very well. They just practice it. They got really good at it. Like all that stuff is like just a practice, and it's a skill set. But if we haven't learned the mechanism of how to go in and experience that, that's got nothing to do with the outside world. Because the truth is, your actual being is whole. Like your soul is whole. I always say to people, you don't have the soul has you. That's how it works. And then when we feel, my personal definition of depression is basically the soul had enough of your personality and your conditioning and all this false expectation, and it's just checked out. And so that's why, because if you think about the soul, it's just light. It's a light force. And that is connected to whatever you want to call it, the supreme intelligence, whatever that label that we want to give it, is connected to that. It's like a quantum packet. And so your personality is just got too involved with who he or she thinks he is and holding on to it real tight. And it's just like, it loves you so much. You're like, okay, I had enough. I'm just going to step here until you figure things out. And then you get depressed. And really, depression is the opportunity to realign your values to something that's much more wholesome. That's really what it is. To let go of how you wish the world to be and how you wanted this and you wanted that. And as soon as that happens, the depression starts to ease off because the soul goes, oh, finally you're listening. Okay, now I'm here. So I always say, we don't have a soul, the soul has us. That's how it works. My personality is Sheian. It's just something I'm just playing with from the soul perspective. You know, and there's nothing wrong with the ego. The ego just needs to be healthy in its conduct. You know, it's not about no ego. That is ego in itself. Yes. That's another identity one can create. So it's just understanding that. It's just appreciate, there's some intelligence that's more superior to my level of mind, my level of personality, and my level of ego. These are the filters that the light goes. So you and I, we have the same light. It's not like you have different light. We came from the Big Bang. There's a one light, whatever that light is. We just have different lampshades. And sometimes we need to dust things off, and sometimes we need to put the bulb, and sometimes we've got too much current coming in, we need to put the transistor. I look at it from a very practical, mechanistic point of view, you know, to keep it simple, to go and explore something for myself. And with spiritual work, very much is like, don't believe anybody. Don't believe somebody who says there isn't an intelligence, or don't believe someone who says there isn't one. That's between you and the you that's inside of you that's giving you life. For sure, I can say something's making my heart beat. Something's making my soul respire. Something's doing that. Something's making the universe. Who that is, I don't know. But there's something there. Is it, you know, a person with a beard judging? My personal thought on that is not really. I think whether or judging ourselves in that space, playing that off. So it's just interesting to just give one the space in one being to allow things to be without, you know, attaching to ideas and concepts. It's more, I always look at it, I hear something, I'm like, that's interesting, I keep it here. I don't actually have it here. I don't put it inside myself because it just gives me indigestion. Maybe test it. I test it. If it happens once, I say, okay, it's once, it's an incident. Happens twice, it's a correlation. Happens multiple times, like there's something that governs that. Is that useful? Is that beneficial? Is that truthful? How can I make that serve that part of me inside, or sort of the people that I love and care about? You know, and I think that masculine force is the force of just that love. I don't want to talk about romantic love or love for a child. It's just something that transcends emotion. You know, we feel it. Even if we see a sunset, it's just something else. That. So then my question is like, how do I access that more often? Why do I have to wait every time to see a sunset? You know, or whatever it is. So that has been my kind of journey. And before I could do that, I was just like, well, what's the gatekeeper there? Oh, it's my mind. My mind is agitated. This is a really agitated mind. Why? Hold on. You know, why are you so agitated? You know, that you that's witnessing the agitation is peaceful. So I'm like, okay, let's spend the next 3 years, and I literally said that, mastering peace to whichever degree. I'm going to go and practice peace as a training. That's why I did the Wim Hof, because you know, you jump in that cold water, it's just like, I love it. You know, it's not very peaceful. Like, can I find peace in the extreme? So, you know, and there was some amazing stories and experiences with him on the mountain, going very deep to a place where there was once, I'm going to share this quick story. So there's one time we went up the mountain, this is the second time as a trainee of Wim Hof process, but the mountain, Mount Shishka, was like, nobody's coming up. It was a crazy blizzard where even the instructors were falling down, right? And I was there, and I just was like, oh boy, this shit just hit the fan. Like, there's people falling, and it's just ice here, ice here. We're growing ice in our hair. It's like the crazy blizzard, right? People like holding on tight. It's really windy. People like screaming. My experience, I went so deep into this piece. I never felt so peaceful in my entire life. It was so deep because I allowed myself to go there. I was like, I don't want to go here. It's chaos. So let me go this way. Right? It's like, so it's that extreme. It's like you either feel everything or you go this way. And when you go this way, something else just took over. And literally, I felt like I was held all the way down. And I was just in this peaceful state. I was like, wow. Because when Hoff said that, he said the cold is God. I was like, what does he mean by that? And it was quite interesting. That's a big statement. What? And I want to have a direct experience. I don't want to just read the Bible or the Quran, which I do. I enjoy reading those things. But I want to have the experience. I'm not looking to just get secondhand information, like from wherever it is. Like I want that experience for myself, direct. And I had that experience there. I had this experience where it was something fully taking care of me, and even it took care of me from a shamanic perspective to help others. Like it was just something coming through me, and I was taking care of. It was an energetic level, and it did calm down. I was like, oh, so there's an intelligence that is always accessible if I can just allow my mind to disappear for a while. Just let it disappear. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it just needs to just part for this intelligence. And so that's the place where the genius can come through. But Einstein always thought, when I stop thinking 99% of the time, the solution comes. The solution comes. Yeah, we're much more intelligent than we can even imagine if we just learn how to realize that faculty of the intellect is just a tool. The Western world, we worship the intellect. We put it onto a pedestal. We think that's it. And then you look at the world as well. How many people have mental health issues? If the intellect was that good, right? What's going on there? Like, something can't be adding up. And when I meet indigenous people, they're just so happy all the time, not trying to be, because, like you just said, they're just good at feeling whole. They're just good at feeling that. So what I'm sharing with the audience is like, that's possible for everybody, is being able to feel more and more whole. And so if you're in a space of wholeness, the irony is it will start reflecting more wholeness experiences, whether it's the prosperity, whether it's the abundance, whether it's the good health, because it's that vibration that you're holding that you'll start to notice. So the pathway for myself it was always the outside world. Then I had to go into the inside world to get a level of competency and realize the inside and outside world is the same thing.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is, you started by, fine-tuning the mind. Your work was on mind-body connection. And then you had this other experience.
Yeah, like body, mind.
Yes, and the body, mind. And then it's like then letting go of the mind. So it's like, into something else. And, you had this experience that you described, which showed you what happens when you allow that space. And, it sounds to me these are kind of little flickers of things that emerged from that. You told the story about the Kundalini yoga, and then these other experiences starting to add texture to that experience, committing to 3 years to follow the path of peace. I mean, I'm curious where we are in the story. I'm like, did this guy find peace in 3 years? That's impressive. Hasn't it taken like all of humanity to get even a semblance of peace? Or like, have you assimilated? So I'm like, where are we in the story?
What my teacher, Maestro Manuel Rufino, he had been training myself in sweat lodges and various kind of ceremonies and practices. Very, very beautiful human being. Like, he's my main teacher. And what I did when I realized that I needed to learn, I was like, let me find some teachers in different fields that I can have in my mind in committee. And they don't know each other. Because if it's truth, it should follow, but maybe spoken in a different way. That's why I saw it. So I got this committee of different individuals who don't necessarily actually know each other. So just to be able to give the mind something to be like, is this plausible? Because I know my mind will be like, that's nonsense. That's impossible. That's the mind. If it's a very strong, and I know I've got a strong mind. So when he said something, which I always connect to when this situation happens, two of which is, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. It just is the way. You just have to choose it. It's a choice. It's just like love. It's a choice. When you see your wife, like you can choose to love her today or you choose not to. It's a choice. And that's a practice. And that's a skill. So every day we get to practice it. And so when in that moment I feel like something's coming up, it doesn't mean I'm placid. It doesn't mean I'm docile. Like peace, people think peace is like, peace, man. I don't agree with that. You know? Peace is like, that's your stuff. That doesn't belong to me. Thank you. Peace. You have an issue, you either calm down or we just don't talk. And then we can talk about it. But if you're over there, you know. And if I'm feeling something in myself for whatever reason, frustrations about work or this, and I'm feeling like I'm ready to take it out on my partner, I'm like, no. She doesn't deserve that. Let me go walk it off. Let me go exercise. Let me go breath work. Let me just do something. Choose the pathway to peace. Whatever it is for the person, like there's a choice. And then you will start to raise your ability to manage those reactions inside as opposed to acting. And that's the real power. That's why the peace is there. Because that's your real power. Everything in the world is trying to take you out of your peace. But they got you. You got to react. You know, if they can react, you're predictable. If you can't react, they're like, I don't know what's his next chess move. I can't tell. And you can see that when you're really in that peaceful place, people really start to test you to see because they need that reaction to get you. And then you see like, oh, that trigger doesn't trigger me anymore. You know, that's a beautiful space. It's worth mastering because behind the peace, what's possible is this. In the Vedas, they call it Brahma consciousness bliss. Your true existence of your beingness is just pure bliss. You know, that's what it is, and it's just infinite. It is an access point, and also the one can sit there and just feel blissful. It's quite scary sometimes when you feel this crazy bliss. You're like, no, it can't be. I still didn't achieve the goals I wanted, or whatever it is. Or I'm not worthy of it. It's like, wait, who is saying that? And then you look at that. That's where the healing comes. Oh, that's my mom's issue. Oh, that's my ancestors' issue. Oh, that's nothing to do with me. That's just something I inherited. Okay, it's time to just clean that out. You know, and so healing and cleaning is the same. And when I look at healing, is expanding one's consciousness. That's all it is. The best way to visualize that is like, if you can imagine, when you're looking at the night sky and you see it all black. Yeah, most of it is black. You see a couple of stars there. You know? But most of it is black. The whole universe is just all black. There's just nothing there. But when you see the moon, you don't really see the moon. You see the light of the sun reflecting the moon. So therefore, that black thing you're seeing is light traveling that way. That's all it is. It's traveling a different way. And you can even say, as a black hole, it pulls in all the light. So anything dense that needs light is light going the other way. As opposed to when you heal, you liberate the light and you experience the light. That's the, you know, I don't know, I'm not enlightened, but I have moments of illumination. You know, everybody does. You know, it's an inspired state. It's just you illuminate. You kind of transcend space and time for that moment where you feel ageless and timeless. And you just feel euphoric. And so back to my mind, when I've had those experience, like, why don't I have that on a regular basis? Why is it just once in a blue moon? Let me go figure that out. So that's where the science part. It's like, is there a method to keep getting into that place?
Yeah. So can I touch on that? Because I've had those moments as well. You know, those moments of temporary bliss or euphoria. And there's a couple of instances where I've caught myself in that moment, you know, where you're truly present, truly flowing in it. And then the mind goes, oh, this is nice. And then it goes, whoop. And then it's just like, whew. It's like the awareness of it in a way, like, because it's the brain is then, you know, I suppose in the Buddhist tradition of non-attachment, I'm starting to attach to it, like by witnessing it.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to chase it. And it's like, I'm chasing it away. Like I push it. It's like a couple of, I don't know if I can describe them as transcendental experiences, but it felt like something. And it's like, I just pushed that one and trying to grip at it or trying to figure out what got me there. And it's just like, and it's, whoa, wow. How fascinating it is when your mind tries to grip onto something or capture it. And it's rather than just staying in that unconscious consciousness in a way. It's just
Yeah.
being, riding the wave. But maybe, this other part around this is like the duality of it all, and needing the contrast in order to know it, to me, has also got to be part of the equation. But when I think of it in that way, I start to think, well, why do we not attach the same meaning to the opposite to it? If it's in the same way you're describing the night sky, and it's like, well, I don't think the night sky has a negative emotion about the contrast of the light and the dark.
Very impersonal.
But it's the human mind is making meaning, and that this idea of the light and liberating the light, I'm with you on that, but it's the darkness that provides the context for light to exist. Or is it? Am I attaching that? What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's the mind works in contrast. I'm always for the feeling of a sense of lightness in my being, like experiencing that lightness, because that feels like me as a 4-year-old. There's a lightness in there, like, when I look at like the people I admire, they're like, there's one, like my teacher's teacher, he's 93, he is so sharp, and but there's a part of him where there's a child there, but he's also very like a strong elder. There's another guy, like Wim Hof is the same. It's like a child. You hang out with him. It's like but there's also this force that's there. And so in my mind, I'm like, what is the purpose of life? There is a limited time in this human experience. It's not like that realm is better than this realm. They're just different realms. And I've noticed that these masters, they're able to play in all those realms as the human experience. There's people who get to spirituality, now all they're doing is omming and just staying in this bliss state, as opposed to enjoy also the 3D realm, that's here. It's actually pretty cool too. So I don't really buy into that. But the contrast is to be able to see what's available as the human experience, to explore more of your potential. We're here to grow. If the universe is expanding, right, and everything is growing, trees are growing, this is growing, even a rock is at some level evolving, so are you. So our true, deepest nature is to expand. And sometimes it's difficult to expand because we have something that's dense, that's holding us back, that's there. Whatever that dense energy, whatever that thing is. Maybe it's a limiting belief, maybe it's a trauma, maybe it's just other people's garbage, maybe it's whatever. It's removing that, so that the essence of who you really are as opposed to who you think you are. They're two different things. People are too busy being who they think they are. And they need other people to remind them who they are, because we're just drug addicts. Like my brother behaved in a certain way so he can get reinforcement of me to tell him that's who he is, which is not who he is. That's just an aspect. There's more to you, that's just more is. So it's opening that space to explore more of it, because unfortunately most of us are conditioned, whether it's social conditioning, tribal conditioning, cultural conditioning, TV media conditioning. All these conditioning puts certain imprints and lock us in a certain way. And so there is feeling bliss, which is good, and there's also feeling those, energies of suffering as part of the human experience. But there's also just to feel free, and I think that's why I changed my name to Freeman. Is way back then, it's like I want to feel free, and it's funny, you build a business. At some point, you want to sell it, you want to kind of break free. So we kind of create our prison, our market trap, and then we want to break free from it. And then we create the next thing to break free from it, and that's just what it is. To keep breaking free.
Yeah, well, such an important subject, finding, liberating freedom, peace. This idea that peace is a decision feels so removed in a world that is not just... It's easy to go on Twitter or X and see the world of users on a social platform engaging in less than peaceful conversation, if that's what you can call it.
Yeah.
And then there's switching on the television or your mobile phone and seeing actual warfare. I've lost track of how many days, months, and years that humanity has existed, but we haven't figured out to make that choice on a collective level to live in peace with ourselves and with one another. And we didn't set the intention of bringing this conversation together to explore how we live in a world of peace. But, my greatest teacher at the moment, in the way that you're describing, is my son. He's 2 years old, and he has just the best most beautiful energy. And he's like, everyone always says, always like the image of you, Dan. It's like, actually, no, he's the image of a version of me in a way, but he is uniquely himself. But he's a reminder to me of that energy that is present within me. And I every day think about, how do I unlock that joyful, jubilant marvel of
Yeah.
curiosity? But that's a whole different conversation that we can come to, because this whole title we said is pursuing joy. But I just long for a world for him to grow up in, where we can be free
Uh-huh.
and we can be peaceful and free from violent conflict and war. And this idea that we can decide, this journey of peace that you've been upon, you talk
Uh-huh.
about the conditioning and the wider world. Well, it's almost like the game is rigged that we don't make that decision. And how has that manifested? Like, how has that become a manifestation of our reality? Why isn't it the opposite? Why don't we have a game that is rigged so that we all choose peace? That we walk down the street and instead of thinking, oh, I'm really hungry, I could do the Mars bar and a can of brown sugary liquid. To choose a healthier choice and to choose a peaceful existence. How have we reached this point, and how do we liberate the light to an extent that we do become more likely without like entering into what I call hopium? Because there are people who will tell you like, we're about to enter this thing and it's just on the other side, and hopefully it is, but I think we've got work to do.
I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot of work before that potential could happen. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I do think we can set the stage.
I'd love to set the stage,
for
at
your
least
kid.
try.
And your kid is going to set the stage for the next thing and the next thing, and that's going to be like that. I really believe that's where we're in. It's going to take a while, because if you think how dark humanity has lived, those powers that be, and I don't want to get into conspiracy theories because it's just disempowering. I'm just not interested in it. Some people can talk about this and this. I'm just like, I'd rather just focus on the new status quo. LinkedIn said, if you want to predict the future, go create it.
Yes.
And
yes.
you do need to build some allies and some people. And people do need training in this. It's not like they don't, like in India they have yoga schools. They're very peaceful. There's lots of traditions and cultures living together, and they're not whatever. Maybe not as peaceful in Pakistan and whatever it is, but they've got their own kind of growing as a culture. But if you look at some places, it's actually pretty peaceful, and you can still be, a healthy competition and build something and create things, and that's part of what we are in. My teacher says that before COVID, there's a funny thing. It's 2020. I was up there working with him, and he goes, the next in 2020, 72 years is basically another spiritual door for different energies to come in, like what it is. And where we are in humanity is the light before the dawn. So we've been in a long winter period, like dark. Winter's dark. Things get a little bit whatever. Which is basically now that place, that light is just coming in, like the first few days of spring, which might take a couple of years just to get to a bit more spring. That's kind of the energy. So that's why a lot of truth is shown about how people are, the pharmaceutical industry and the governments, and you start to see all this nonsense like that. All that stuff is coming out, and then that's why we're like, wait, hold on, we've been had, and the species like we've been had. We thought everything was good, so that's all like coming to the surface. And he just said, and it's literally before COVID. He goes, the next 72 years is a big cleanup job, and if humanity does a good cleanup job, they don't have to suffer so much. But if they don't, there's a lot of suffering, because the suffering is holding on. That when we hold on to something that's breaking, it creates more suffering. But if we allow it to fall and let go and focus on the new status quo and put the energy towards that, like what you do with the cat, like whatever it is, it's much more useful to use that frustration towards something more productive. Because again, frustration is just an energy. Now I can be frustrated and be in the car, be annoyed, or I can try to create something with it and do something that's actually meaningful. That's there. So I think that's where we're all, you can feel that after COVID. People are just like more into meditation, more into yoga work, more into hanging out with each other, more into having these conversations. And then some people get really deep into conspiracy theories and like, wait, that's not helping. It's good to know, but it's not good to waste your life force on it, because your attention creates things. That's why we say pay attention.
Yes.
You're paying. You're paying it. You're paying for it. Whatever you pay
Yes.
attention, you're paying for it, and that's creation.
Yeah.
That's more important than money.
Yeah. So I want to just touch on that a little bit because obviously the content that we've been creating over the last few years has been looking at the kind of nature of the external reality and, why things are happening the way they do. You mentioned big pharma, we've looked at all the mechanical elements of all this. And it's easy to describe some of that. And I know you're not doing that. I know you're aware of these things, but it's easy for some to just put a conspiracy wrapper around some of these things. And I've been grappling with this.
And there are conspiracies.
Well, there are conspiracies. There is also actual, yeah.
You and I are conspiring to do something that's beneficial.
Yes. Well, yeah. Again, I look to the root of the word conspire. All of these things are important conversations, but I'm left grappling with this idea in terms of understanding the nature of reality from a kind of seeker of wisdom, of truth.
Yes.
And a deeper understanding of the nature of reality, almost a philosophical, spiritual dimension.
Yeah.
But also a seeker of truth in the practical, mechanistic realm. And because I'm with you on intentionality and focus. If all we look at is the nature of the mechanical world and what's wrong, if we only look at the dark of what the world is offering, we will never see the light of the moon. We'll never see the light of the sun. And it's. But at some level, truth, I question, knowing truth, is knowing truth, does it require us to therefore look into the yin and the yang, to see the dark and the light, to not turn our heads away from? And I learned this from one of our other speakers at Camp Out, Marcy Locke. She used to talk about how people repress certain emotions because they're told, they enter into the personal development world. It's like, be positive, be positive, be positive. It's like you're pushing away your anger, frustration, and it just builds this toxicity in your body, and then you get sick. And it's like, what are these teachers teaching us? And in a way that these things, the darker elements of society that are unfolding in this way, that it's showing us what we need to clean up. If we turn away from it, we just be ignorant. It's like, it's like the teenager self. My room's fine. It's not. It doesn't need tidying. Adult self definitely did need tidying. It's like, how do we hold that and manage our attention? Because you're right, paying attention, it comes with a price. But how do we do so in a way that we are able to embrace the wholeness, including the elements?
It's a great question, and I agree with you. I'm not into positive thinking, me personally. I'm just not into it. I'm more into loving, balanced thinking, where you see both sides of what it is, and then picking your battle. There's only so many battles you can pick that are useful. So that's just the way it is. An example is, I like, give you my background. I was born into war. 1980, Iraq-Iran war. That's where I was born. And my father's side were Peshmergas, were freedom fighters. So I've got a strong freedom fighter energy. Like, there's a part of me that loves to fight. Going to kickboxing, bodybuilding, like, there's a fighter in me. And it's coming from my father's side. And I've seen it as a kid. My dad will get in a situation in the car, and there's like 5 black guys. You pull out a screwdriver, and he's ready to fight. Like, they're always ready. Like, with just that energy. Like, so that's how I grew up. Like, you stand up for yourself. Something happens, you stand, you fight. And that's the good thing I had my mum. She was more like the loving, caring, let's take care. So it was a nice balance. But we left as refugees because my uncle ended up killing a bunch of Saddam's generals, and so we had to go leave. And we were very wealthy at the time, and we were literally on donkeys through the mountains, getting bombed out. We was actually shot at. All sorts of things happened. And I remember as a kid. Sorry, something's device.
Just while you're doing that, my brain, as you were saying that, it's like, wow, that's a curveball of the story. It's like, and I've heard your story. I know your origin. And it's like, for the people watching this, they're like, yeah, just throw in that my uncle did this to a bunch of really important people in this whole battle. Okay, right.
Yeah, I guess some funny conversations of what happened with another uncle, like when ISIS tried to attack, what he did. I'm like, yeah, Merry Christmas. It's pretty far unreal from like my own experiences. But what I'm sharing is like, when I was like 10 years old, we used to do these protests like all the time. That's what Saddam Hussein and what he was doing and everything else. And I just started realizing like protesting doesn't even work. It'd be much better if I really want to get involved. It's like, how do I actually help Iraq? What is that? So I've got a plan for that. It's the same thing if you want to help nature. Like if you want to really stop the drilling of nature, so why don't you get really good at business and entrepreneurship? There's a guy, a Swedish guy, who bought acres of the rainforest not to be touched. Like that's what we need to do. We need to just like do the work for whatever time period, 10, 15 years, is choose that as your battle, whatever that is. So it's like, that's how I believe. And you know what? That stuff, it sucks. It's a lot easier to be like, no, stop it. This is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. And you still feel disempowered afterwards. That's why I don't really bother with it, because I still feel like a chump afterwards. Nothing's changing. So it's good to take that negative energy and just like, right, I'm going to use that as fuel.
Yes.
Whatever it is, use it as fuel it's just fuel. That's what it is. So, it's like, but I think also at the same time, people need to learn how to understand how their system works, how to really align yourself, because we are instrument of consciousness. And these energy centers or chakras or whatever you want to call are just like, they're just strings of a guitar, And if your guitar is untuned, you're playing a very bad game. Just untuned. So you need to learn to tune yourself, and at the same time spend time in nature. If you really want to help nature, is to remember you are nature. Your essence came from her. One day you shall return to her. Your body will return back to her. You're made from nature. And that's why the great prophets of the world, Jesus went to the desert, Muhammad went to the cave, Moses went to the mountain, Buddha went to the tree. They didn't go to churches or synagogues or mosques. They connected to something there. And so if you want to find out what are you about more, then spend more time there than on your TV and your whatever it is. Connect to what is your mission here. Then for some people, it might be a significant mission. And others, it might be, hey, I'm just here to have ice cream. That's cool too. It might be just, what? I'm just going to raise this awesome son and he's going to be whatever. I don't know. But there's some intelligence that will give you that kind of sense of knowing. And I just think the first step for most people is to just declutter oneself. Just clean out, declutter to receive. And always practice tuning in. And then we get into the world, and we get a bit overwhelmed. Clean yourself out, tune back in, And that's kind of like the best way to do it.
So we need to find ways to declutter, to come back to ourselves, to remove the layers, to get into a point where we can start making some of those conscious choices, whether it's consciously choosing peace, consciously choosing freedom. And then I suppose for me personally, as I'm saying, I'm imagining then what it does is creates the space for you to then make those deliberate decisions, whether it's you want to chill and have an ice cream, or you want to go on a mission to make a difference in the world. Either way, it's without judgment. It's your choice. It's your pathway. And you're putting together an amazing event this weekend, and I was delighted to be invited to come along. And I said to you, let's talk about it on a podcast, because the conversations I've been having here, deconstructing lots of these different things that's happening in the world, is what I'm witnessing is just the subtitle of the previous podcast was Question Everything, and it's because people were, the veil of reality was starting to fall, and as a result, people are now more skeptical than ever before, and and I am like, I'm someone that is very open-minded, and with the kind of practices and event things that you're talking about, I thought this sounds really cool, but part of me is now like, question everything. Like, where does this all come from? How does it work? Like, I've gone back to first principles with almost everything, which I don't think is healthy, by the way, to lose trust in everything. Healthy skepticism and blind trust and blind distrust are equally unhealthy in my view. But I feel a calling to engage in different practices that can help support the liberation of this joy, that joyful playfulness that I see within my son and I see within myself, but also an energy that then leads to making more deliberate and conscious choices towards the next phase of evolution for myself. I feel like I'm going through a process. I've just turned 40 literally yesterday. And I feel like now I'm looking at a maturity, but also an opportunity to kind of reinvent who I am to a degree, or reclaim parts of me who's been lost, to embrace new parts of me that have yet to unfold. And to do that requires outside tools, practices, and rituals. And I'm really curious about what we're going to experience on Sunday. Obviously, I don't want you, spoiler alert, to give it all away. But again, even with some of those practices, you've traveled the world and brought together this almost symphony of ideas and experiences. And I'm yearning for those types of experiences, but I'm also trying to reconnect with what's been lost in the Western world, because we, particularly in the Western now, we go outside of the West to find like what's been lost, and we go to like the East, and I've embraced things like the Tao Te Ching and Buddhism and meditation and yoga and breath work and all these things. Yet the part of me is like, well, what's all the thing? What's come from my lineage that's been lost? So I'm curious, like, how you've put together this event, and what's its intention, what the intention behind it is, and what people can expect.
Oh yes, so this workshop on the 26th of November, which is Sunday, at the Swiss Church in Covent Garden, which looks like a showroom, bright lights. We are having some of the most talented, amazing musicians, African drummers. They're going to do a very old technology called shaking medicine, where we shake our old self out of our system and reset the nervous system. And there are people who can literally have a very ecstatic experience once they let go. So it comes from the Kalahari Bushmen. And the way they do it, very, very old technology. When someone's blocked or suffering or in pain, they're like, great, you're blocked, you're suffering. Okay, it means your spirit, wants to come out. It wants to just come out. That's all it needs to do. They don't look at it as a negative thing. They don't look at it like, oh, sit down, tell me about your childhood, tell me about this. It's just like, there's something just needs to leave. That's how they treat it. So it's very simple, but very profound. And, the Quakers used to do the same thing. If you know, Quakers oats.
Yeah.
Part of the Christian traditions, and they will do the same. They call it quaking, and some of them will drink strychnine poisoning and not get sick. Like, that's building their field. You will literally feel that. We're not going to do that, but it just shows where you can open up your field to make it very strong, so things don't penetrate you as much, things don't affect you as much. And so, just because you and I don't see this electromagnetic energy around us, people who feel tired and exhausted, it's just down here. People who are high performers and they're really on a level, they've got a really big radiant field. So I always say, if Jesus walking by your building right now, just outside, you just feel good for no reason, because your field is healed. And we all have this field, so you can open it up. It's called the radiant body, right? That's what it is. We open that radiant body to have an experience like, oh, I'm elevating at a different level, to bring in, just like a child, the joy of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, entheos, means one who's possessed by God. And we can just say God is just this high energy vibration. That's all it is. Just keep it simple. Not some guy in a beard going, hey, you should be not doing that. That's just your mind doing that. Yeah. So there's that. There's also going to be Kundalini yoga. Kundalini yoga is basically understanding life force. Life force sits at the base of your spine. Kundalini just means anything that has life. So a dog barking is Kundalini yoga. The sun's rotating around the sun is Kundalini. So it's bringing this Kundalini energy up and showing people how to do it in a very slow and safe way. We don't want to, it's very potent, so we want to bring it up nice and gently. It's not an awakening, it's more just a, hey, hi, I never knew that was there. There's something happening in my system. And to be able to tune in to your energy centers, like really to understand how that works, because sometimes they compensate. There's a whole study behind that. We won't go too much in detail, but to have an experience, to be like, check it out, yeah. And to like kids, why kids are so cool? It's because they give themselves permission to do what they want. They just give themselves permission, before the conditions. So there's a lot of space to give ourselves permission to be childlike, not childish. Very different. And that childlike energy creates curiosity. It also opens the mind, because play opens the mind for solutions to certain problems. So when we're very playful, then after 3-4 hours later, the solution to whatever it is in your business just comes, rather than let me logically try to figure it out, because it's beyond. In the Tao, it says that what you know is beneficial, that's there. That which we don't know, basically we call it the mystery, is useful. So you're tapping into the mystery. that's just outside of your realm of reality or understanding. We go there to tap in, to bring something useful. And it might be something about your relation. Oh, that's what my mum really needs. I thought it was this thing. Or whatever it is for the person. So there's a lot of solutions to come through. And then we have some of the best musicians, Vedic sound healer. We've been working with her for 3 years. Her voice is just incredible. Like, so when she sings these mantras, you kind of feel like the deities are present. Like, wait, there's something happening. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Jay Ra, he's a beautiful teacher. He does like a reggae kirtan. So we end up singing, dancing, shaking, quaking, being playful, connected. There's some white tantra yoga to really feel another being in front of you for the healing to happen. There's a sound journey where we're taking people to an exploration of their own being and opening things up. I'd be singing my fiance where we do shamanic work, singing certain chants and it grows. These chants carry a certain frequency to just clean things. So like I say, I'm a cleaner. I'm clean things. And then we're going to come together finally and do a very beautiful prayer for peace. That's there. And really feel that peace inside ourselves. But the goal is that when people leave, we go, oh, I know what that is. Now, it's my job to hold on to that. That's just my job. Just let me hold on to that. I work with that and to share with your audiences the powers of the peace. If you don't understand that, someone's always going to just pull you out of it, take you out of it, and they're going to have their own agendas. It might not pertain for your highest good and importance. So peace is the way. And for peace, joy is there, freedom's there, creativity is there, and then we get to this beautiful place, which I'm very fascinated about, is genius. So I think it's pretty shame that we have 7 billion people and there's not that many geniuses out there. And a genius is someone who can see a target that no one else can see. That's a genius. And we all have that capacity, but we were trained. We were trained to work for the man or whatever it is, to access that genius that's inside of us. And give you very practical tips that people can take away, test it for themselves, and explore their own consciousness.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that concept of genius, we could do a whole conversation on that one. Yeah, I remember reading Robert Greene's Mastery, and there were so many insights just from his studies into masters of time and, and genius and the absence of genius. Now, I want to touch upon the kind of potential the cynical relationship to what you've described, because I think there'll be people watching going, Sheian, you had me. Everything you've made sense, but now you started talking about chanting and singing and dancing and movement. You know, you came from a place of body, mind, and now this spirit element. What would you say to the people who are cynical about these type of experiences? And I think there's the cynic, and there's also the adult fear that goes, I don't want to move. I don't want to be seen. There's all these things. There's always the inner critic, the judge. And what would you say if someone's had because I can almost imagine, I almost get as I'm having a conversation now, I can almost get a visceral reaction about what's going to play out in the comments as we're speaking. And it's like, I'm imagining at this point, there's going to be some sort of reaction. I'm like, let's play with that and see what you say.
Yeah. Well, it depends what they value. Values takes us to whichever journey we want to go into. I do know, being in the fitness industry for a long time, when you change the way you move, you change the way you think. If you want to think in different ways, not just straight, but laterally or around, you start moving differently. It starts wiring your brain differently because they're all linked. That's there. Check this guy out called Granddaddy Harvey. He's on Instagram. He's 109 years old. He dances like he's a 15-year-old. So it gives you life, to be able to move. So think of it just a practical point. Don't think about the spirituality. It's something that happens when we open ourselves and the way we think. And then we're able to not age as much. The more stiff you are aging. That's why babies are very open and valuable, But if you're stiff, it might be a good idea to unstiffen yourself.
Yeah, I had a massage yesterday as part of my birthday celebration, and I was definitely in need of it. It's like,
yeah. And what I'm trying to give to people is permission, whereby they can go at home afterwards. In this space, it's not like who's a great dancer. We don't live in that space. There's not no one cares. is giving oneself permission that I can put some music on it and just dance for a bit. Why not? What's that thing that's holding me back from doing that? Even if it's just 5 minutes. If I can brush my teeth, I can't do that. Like, what is that? That's the question I would like to ask your audience. Like, what is stopping you from allowing yourself to do that? What voices, what conditioning, who said what, you know? Because in that moment of allowing yourself to dance or whatever it is, you get to lose the identity of who you are to allow something else to merge through it. Not to disown it, but just some space to explore something else that's there. You know, so that's from a very practical point of view. Now, regarding you're not going to be doing the chanting, someone else is. But there are certain frequencies in sounds, but sounds just open things out. So that's why we like to listen. They're beautiful songs. It just opens something in our consciousness. Regardless if you know what it means, the transmission of the feeling feels whatever it feels like. So that's an opportunity to feel a different feeling. Because guess what? Feelings are training. You know, I always look at a homeless person like, wow, that guy's got a PhD in shame. He's so good at shame. Like, wow, he went to heaven. They were like, here's the Oscar for the person with the most shame. So I have shame inside myself, and I have all those feelings. But which one am I choosing to practice? It's a practice. You know, a big training is, okay, I was angry. I get angry for like a day. Can I get angry for half a day now? Maybe I can't get rid of it straight away. Can I get rid of it to just an hour? Just, you know, like learning, like knowing that it's like that's just a training, because it's the body used to that addiction of that feeling. So I always say with healing, if you're taking something out, whatever it is, you need to plant it with something new. Otherwise, there are some people in the healing industry or the healing work, they're always pulling out weeds, but they're not planting it into you. And if you look at a really nice garden, the mind is a garden. A really nice garden, there's just lots of flowers and trees and whatever they are, and weeds can't grow there anymore. You know, so it's planted in those things. And so emotions is really the water. Which water am I giving it? Am I giving it that dirty water that has chemicals in it, or am I giving it, you know, joy or bliss or understanding or compassion or whatever it is to get good at it? And what I can share with your audience is, you can kind of say, and for you, Dan, like, you would say you're more compassionate to yourself than you were when you were 25.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
We can argue.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Much more compassionate.
I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah. I'd be very. In fact, I'd be certain of that.
Yeah, and we could hypothetically say when you turn 55, there's a more compassionate you out there than you are now.
Certainly possible. Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Well, absolutely. Well, I would 100%. You know, again, it's learning the depths of compassion will take time and practice. So, with
right, but how many times are we practicing it?
Well,
that's the thing.
That's right.
So if you were to practice it, then you don't have to wait till you're 55. It could be a bit sooner.
Yeah,
that's what I'm sharing as an option. That's there. Like, we don't have to wait so long. And so once you can do it for yourself, so let's say I meet somebody and they are just trying to bug me silly. You know, I just start just emanating compassion. I'm like, thank you. You just helped me to practice my compassion for myself. When I'm in a tube, it's really constricted. Yeah. What I'm doing, the way I'm like, so I don't live in Richmond, so when I go to Green Park, our clients in Mayfair, I'm literally just blessing everybody with a lot of love, unconditional love. I come out of the tube station going, rah, as opposed to, oh my God, when is this train going to end? When is this going to happen? This is something. Wait, I'm training myself to feel that way. Oh, thank you. That's what I'm sharing. Is like, you have the capacity to choose the feelings and use your outside world as a way to kind of aikido it in a good way. So this event is to share those practices and allow people to pick what they want and experiment. Don't believe me. Just pick a couple, try it for 21 days, see where you go with it.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, you know, I'm excited to come because I want to reconnect with those sense of joy and bliss and playfulness. You know, the last 3 years has been very heavy. It's been quite intense, you know, and again, I'm conscious of my own meaning making and my own experience of that period of time. I also want to tap into my creativity and intuition, which I know will come from these experiences, and to, there's also a letting go, because I also feel the resistance, you know, my own cynicism, my own skepticism around some of the practices that have always served me well. But there's now this overthinking mind, the over questioning mind, the outer and inner critic is now becoming a barrier. So I want to let go of some of those barriers. And there's the freedom we're seeking outside ourselves, I believe we can find inside ourselves. And I know there's a stiffness in me, there's a physical stiffness, but there's a kind of metaphoric stiffness. And I was at a fascinating workshop earlier in the year, and they were talking about how men used to walk with their shoulders, but now men walk like they try to, it's like mimicking it. Whereas you watch some of the old films and the masculine men would be very, there would be like this bravado, but it was
Swagger, yeah.
Swagger, but it was like the ones that had it congruently, they were the people that were perceived to be the cool guys. Were the ones who try to put it on would never get it. But it's the instructor taught us about how the masculine used to move with this flow. They used it was a natural way of moving, but now we're like stiff. And it's like we've got to get out of that stiffness. It's reconnecting with that energy that can flow through us. We've become so constricted and shut down, and I feel that. Like I feel restricted in my body. And again, I watch my son. Like we're in watching a band yesterday afternoon. On Sunday afternoon, and he was, after a little while of being nervous and shy, he really got on the dance floor. He was giving it his own thing. I was like, I've got to help lead this. I've got to. So I want to be there with him. The conscious mind is like, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. It's a Sunday. It's like, come on, let's go. So, but there's so much liberation there. So it's no longer thinking of what does someone think of me and all this sort of stuff. So I'm here to find that freedom within me. I'm really looking forward to expanding the freedom inside of me. I think most of my audience would agree we need more freedom in the outside world, and therefore, if we want to see it, we've got to find it in ourselves. And the same is true for peace. So again, it's so within, so without. There is conflicts within me that I've been grappling with in here, and I want to come back into my body and release those and come into peace. So, and I know and trust in the process, and I'm open-minded, and I cannot wait to experience what you've put together. And I know for the really skeptical people, what's brilliant about you is that you still look at it through the lens of the mind, and you're able to explain almost the science on everything that you're doing. So it's not just like, hey, we found this cool thing in this thing that made me feel good. You're like, well, here's why. Here's how it works. And I think that for me is that for a lot of people, that's comforting, because it's not so easy for people to trust in the process. They're always trying to rationalize, and sometimes it's a safety mechanism, but actually it can actually provide a degree of comfort knowing that.
Yeah, I respect that we have a mind and we need to give the mind something. It's like give a dog a bone.
Yeah,
we need to give it a bone that is like, that bone feels good. And like, here's a simple thing. It's like, and this was before I did any of this work, and I always said that our physiology affects our psychology. You change your physiology, you change your psychology. You bop down the road like this, and you might be this, what am I doing? People are going to judge me. But then at some point that will go away. And you go, you know what? I feel pretty good, right? It just does. So how we move, how we sit, how we lie down, all those things affect our psychology. Sometimes to change your psychology through psychology is like playing chess with yourself. You always know your next move. You just know what's going to happen next, and you can outwit yourself, and then you get into this kind of like circle. So I love what you just shared, because I with my partner, I'll do like Monty Python city walks.
Oh yeah.
I walk like Charlie Chaplin. I'll do these crazy walks. I walk all the way down the street up and down. Why? Because I'm like, it's just a fun walk.
Yes. Well, I used to do stuff like that at university when I had much less confidence. It's like.
So it's and I think a lot of that is for the British culture, because I'm British, and I've had to struggle with it. It's just a little permission. Am I hurting anybody? No. Am I hurting myself? No. So let me just explore it, just to explore. And that's the permission. Just let me explore. Don't make it into a big thing. Is this right? Is this wrong? What does this mean? Is this the whole? No, just let go of that. Explore for yourself and discover something about yourself. And be like, wow, how do I feel right now? I felt a bit more joyous. Oh, so I let go of all the stresses. I need to get this event going. Do this. It's like you give that bit of a break. And this is the irony. This is where it's useful. That when you give that thing a break, and you're doing something else, somehow it starts working out. It's a really weird thing.
Yes.
When you just give it a bit of a break. But when you're kind of just staring at it for so long, it's just like, it's not working. And then you try to do other things and you kind of mess it up. So I'm just like, explore that, like how that is related to this at some point. Give yourself permission. And that's really what my event's about, is give yourself permission. There's no right or wrong. The right or wrong is in our head. And you choose to do whatever feels on a deeper level worth exploring. And so consciousness work is an exploration. It's all exploring itself.
There's one more kind of objection I'd like to kind of float with you, if I may. So this is narrow and broad at the same time. So there's some of the more Western religious faiths, Christianity and other traditional faiths, that are, I found, to be skeptical of anything of this type of nature that you've described. Certain parts of those religious traditions actually embrace these as a way to find a deeper connection to God. But I also see the opposite to be true, where some people, think that they can't go down that path because it is against their religion. So that's the kind of narrow part. The broader context is there's also a conversation in the world of culture and society about appropriation and cultural misappropriation of things outside of the Western culture, and this idea that things that get lost in translation, and that these things belong over there and not over here. And I don't think that for myself is a healthy conversation, but I can also understand the root of the concern.
Yeah.
Would you address both of those parts?
For sure. So regarding like an example, I helped a student of mine. She was dealing with very stage 4 cancer. We did a lot of different type of work with her. And then let's just say the cancer is gone, right? I'm not saying I healed it. I'm just saying we just did a lot of work. And whatever happened, happened. So I'm not making any claims. And, she at some point had a very strong Jesus moment. Really strong, like, great. I'm a big fan of Jesus. I'm a huge fan. And, there's certain things that I do now she was really into, but she can't because of her religion. Now, the step there, I would say, is it the religion or is it your domination? The certain domination allows and it doesn't. And each one has a different take on things. And that's fine. I'm not here to fight. Just your path is your path. But is it that? And one of the things is I'm more interested in, let's say, I'm interested in all the great prophets. I read about all of them and all the great messages and all the yogis and things. I just love reading those guys because there's something I can take that's useful for me. Other things I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's fine too. And so, he says to enter the kingdom of heaven, you need to go as a child. You need to go as a child. Childlike. The eyes of innocence. So if one doesn't have that, then how are you really entering? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, how are you actually entering? And you might have a priest or imam, it's like whoever it is, saying whatever, but do they have that? And now you're listening to them? Like wait. At the end of the day, my relationship to, this is just for me, I don't think anyone should adopt it. My relationship to that thing is very personal. I always say to everybody else, it's personal. It's super personal. There's no right or wrong. I'm not here to say it's right or wrong. I can only give you my example. And when someone says, like, which path do I take? I'm like, you are the path. If there's 8 billion people, there's 8 billion paths to the one, whichever way it is. That's the reality of it. And for some people, it might be understanding a bunch of different things. A lot of people do that. And they go back to their roots at some point. That's what happened to Ramdas. He went all around the circles and then he kind of went back to his Judaism, and then that might have to happen to understand things in a different way. For others, it might be straight to that thing, or it might not be. So I don't know what your answer is for the particular person, but I do know to enter the kingdom of heaven, every time I'm in that space of childlike energy, I just feel such abundant connection to that force. So I agree with his teaching. And also he said, it's in the Bible, no, blessed are the pure of heart, for they should see God. So what does that mean? You need to clean things. You are pure. Everyone's pure because the light is pure. It's just the stuff in the way that you're not seeing in it. So if you want to experience it yourself, you can read all the texts all I want. But if I'm still not pure, I'm not really intellectually. I might get it. Yeah, I know what compassion is, but you read it. Like, do you know it from the level of Christ, or can you get to some higher degree? Can you do that? Experience that? I don't have no idea how compassionate Christ is, but I'm sure he's pretty high up there. Can I get like another 10, 20% up? You know, that's interesting. Yeah, can I do that? Yeah, probably. You know, so I look at it from that perspective. You know, again with Islam, it's like when I pray, I'm in tears. With Islam. My mum didn't teach me anything about Islam. I'm just really connected to the feeling before reading everything, because I want to have some sort of experience with it. And the word jihad doesn't mean go fighting with other people. The real spiritual word for jihad means to fight the war against your own vices, that blackness that's inside of you, to release, let go, clean out. So it's the same thing, purity. You know, godliness and cleanliness go hand in hand, but not from a place of, oh, I'm so special and so clean, because that's now arrogance. Yeah. So I always say the battle is arrogance and ignorance, and we all have it. I know I get arrogant, so I guess why I have my beloved. It's like, calm down. You know? And it's subtle. I regarded the cultural the appropriation of different ideas. Yeah, you're gonna have some people. My friend Tommy, he's gonna be at the event. He's a master flute player. He's like the Pied Piper, incredible. Like takes you. He's studied 10 years with the Mayan elders, with Tata Pedra. He's like the Dalai Lama of the Mayan people. Very innovative, very open to the Western world. Very giving in terms of initiation, takes training, and he receives a lot of initiation. But there are other Mayan elders. We're like, no, it's only for the Mayan blood. And it's only for that. And so I just think that's just part of the journey. You've got to get some people to say no. And that's just testing. Are you really listening to your intuition? And for your intuition, it might say no, and then good, let's follow that. And for someone else, it's like, it is that. And for me, people might look at me like, wow, you study way too much. How ever are you going to get enlightened? How are you going to do it? I don't care what you say. My intuition is telling me where to go. And I think, that's the truth. It's just having the capacity to listen to that, follow that, test it. Just test it. It's the best way. Because now you just get involved with people's opinions. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're 20% right. Sometimes it's wrong. Just flat wrong. So, yeah. Your path is your path. No one can tell you what it is. Like for myself, I just share other guide. Hey, explore this, explore this. I see a lot of my students follow different paths. One's like self-inquiry. She's really good at it. One's more breath work. I'm not here to tell anybody what it is. I can only share what's working for me. It may work for you. Actually, it might be the worst thing for you. Don't do it. That's fine. It's How do you talk about God? It's like very hard. Just hard. But to have your own experience of that. It's like when you see your child, what are you seeing? You're seeing, yes, your child, but you also see that manifestation of the God's presence, because that's what a child has. It's pure of heart. It's just pure of heart. That's why we like children. Because that pure.
Yes. There's such magic. So if you're watching this episode before the 26th of November, then you have the opportunity to come and join us in London. I'll be there. Looking forward to this experience. If you're not watching this before the 26th of November, then I'm sure this won't be the last experience that my dear friend Sheian hosts. So it'd be useful for us to signpost that if you'd like to come to the event, then the details will be in the description wherever you're watching or listening this. So have a look there. You'll get access to the event details and the opportunity to book. But for those who perhaps missed the cutoff for this event and would like to engage further, what's the best way for people to stay connected with your ongoing work? Because I know you're really liberating this pathway now yourself. You had a period where you were kind of off the camera for a while, and now you're coming back into the scene with these events and experiences. What's the best way for people to keep track of what's coming up again in the future with you?
So these kind of big workshop events I do every 3 or 4 months with a particular theme based on it. I think the next one is going to be a Mother Earth theme, and so a lot of the work will be based on connecting and feeling Mother Earth, but also the element of Earth and the cosmic womb itself. There's a lot of feminine energy inside ourselves. I haven't got dates for that yet. I'm actually just in the process of building my own website with my name on it, and changing all my social media stuff, because my previous name, which is still up there, which I haven't changed yet, is Lazar Freeman. So if you want to add me on Facebook, you just say you came through Dan, and so I know where you came from. Happy to answer any questions, whatever it is, and then I can keep you potentially in the loop for something that's happening. And yeah, so the biggest thing what I can help provide is what's the best thing I can provide? Just different processes and practices, and I'm very into the practical path of the modern way. That's what I'm interested in. My background is Taurus. If it's not practical, I'm not interested. If I can't measure it on some level, I'm not that interested in it. So yes, so there's going to be lots of cool events next year. A lot of interesting things happening. I also bring various indigenous elders. We call them wisdom keepers of nature. That's happening next year. One of which is going to be people from the Huniko tribe, people from the Mayan tribe, and probably one of the most amazing shamanic musician known who won a Grammy Award. There's talk about him coming. He's old now, he's not going to be traveling much, so we'll let Dan know and anybody else when that happens. Highly recommend it.
Fantastic. Well, as your new web presence emerges, we'll have you back on so we can share what's coming up in the future. This has been an amazing conversation. I look forward to actually sharing my experiences from the event. So even if you're watching this after the event, I'll also be recording a podcast based upon my reflections on the event. So if you're not on my mailing list, you can go to Astin-Gregory.com/pandemic. We're still using the old branding at the moment. We're also going to be repositioning our web presence very soon as well, so watch out for that. But thank you so much for this amazing conversation. And again, if this has piqued your curiosity, do come and join us in London if you can. If not, we will look forward to seeing you at another event that Sheian is putting on in the next few months and well, in fact, the years ahead. So thank you so much for being with us here today. I can't wait to see you again at the weekend.
Thank you, Dad.
And really look forward to sharing this conversation with everyone at home.
Absolute pleasure. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Sunday and having a bit of fun.